Hey traders, this is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and today is Monday, February 1st. So the first day of the week concludes. We had a pretty strong day and some good participation, I thought, in a couple different sectors. So I'll go over the performance of the day. We'll talk a little bit about today's option activity. First things first, we'll look at the technicals of the indices. Yeah, I mean, you could see what was going on here. S&P was just really well bid, and a couple times today, maybe a buy program, and it kind of felt like the first of the month flows. The February 2nd was Friday, right? So that was the first day of the month, but it kind of seemed like today felt like first of the month flows where somebody was putting some more work together because you just see a couple of these big bars that happened. This was around 11 o'clock. Then we took another leg up around right before 2 o'clock in the S&P. And then the biggest bar of the day was right at the end of the close. So, remember, volume is where volume at the end of the day, it's the most liquid portion. Most liquid time of the day. So you could see, and I think SPY is going to be headed down here a little bit with the Google results. I'll get to them in just a second. But same thing with the Qs. I mean, the Qs were really strong. They were up 1.2%. A lot of participation going on in the Qs. Software names again. IWM was also strong. IWM finished up 1.2%. So just another big day of market move. So, and this is kind of what we've been saying for the last couple of weeks is, I mean, I would think my gut instinct, or I don't know, maybe not my gut instinct, but I would start to think that we would be doing some type of pausing here. But I keep saying, this has been my bread and butter since we turned around on 1226 is the 5-day moving average and price. Even what this was in the beginning of last week and the week before, there was a little bit of digestion here, but we never really lost the 5-period exponential moving average, and we're doing the same thing. So you can continue to guess and continue to speculate when this move is going to be over. Maybe it's when we get a little bit further, but you just kind of stick with it as much as you can. If you want to hedge, I mean, the hedges are costing money if you're putting on any hedges right now, but that's your insurance, right? That's an insurance policy. That's what SPY or Qs or IWM hedges are. They're basically just that. They are an insurance policy. You don't really want to make money on those hedges, but yeah. So up another 65 basis points was the S&P. Very, very strong. So what to start out with? I mean, we'll start off with the best performing sector, which is the pot stocks. These things really took off today. It felt like they got a little bit toppy. You could see that big long candle kind of almost looks like a shooting star on some of the individual names. This is the ETF. We were talking about 39. One of my colleagues owns this ETF, and we were looking at the version point of control as 39. That could be where it gets to. I would not get too discouraged by this. Sometimes when you see these long wicks, you remember 3 days makes a pattern. 1 day does not make a pattern. I did sell my one name that I was holding today because I don't know. I just can't hold these things for very long. I haven't really been. I'm happy to say this. Maybe not happy to say it, but I'm always transparent. I really just haven't been playing this group. I know that we've been seeing a whole bunch of call buying in this cron, which this does look like it's, the RSI right now is about a 90, so it's very, very heated. But if you remember what we saw back here, on this day in Tillery, where this thing went all the way up to 300, it kind of feels a little bit like that with some of these names doing that, just that. CGC has been a very strong performer too. A couple new names kind of caught some option activity today. Maybe this one saw last week as well. APHA. There's a couple other ones too that are out there, but I'm not going to spend the whole video on the pot stocks. But yeah, I have a hard time holding these things, more than I think I was in NBEV for a couple weeks. I've been in that one now a couple times, but maybe because it's a lower price stock, but it's easy to get back in these things. but it didn't close. I took a target close to the high of the day, and then I took it off with about an hour to go. Oh, so the other thing, of course, that's why I was hesitating for a second. Duh, Google. Yeah, interesting the performance today, and it was up 2% today, so really ran into the report, and it's basically back to the opening price. There was a couple things. The quarter, like the EPS number and the revenue numbers, were really strong. But what got people a little bit concerned, and this was the expectations going into the quarter, was margins. The same thing for Amazon as well. People are concerned about the margins. The main number that investors are looking for are positive. Ads on Google properties are up 21%. Sorry, this was not the data point that I was looking for. This one was down 29%. Spending rocketed. This is, I think, the concerning. But it says so. Spending skyrocketed during the quarter. The company spent 6.85 billion in capital expenditures and only 61 million on other bets. To me, that sounds. I would kind of want a company to be spending and what rather than buying back shares. I guess you got to spend to kind of be the leader. So I don't see that that's that bad. But I do find it interesting that the only FANG name that ended up initial reaction, let's say post market, before you get to the next day is Facebook, and that's probably the one that would be most shocking to people. If you had to say, of the four FANG names, Facebook, Google, Amazon, and Netflix, which one would you think would be up, big after hours after earnings? I wouldn't have said Facebook. So, these earnings reports are always really difficult to figure out what they're going to do. The best thing that I try to do is look for earnings consistency, and Google just didn't have that. That was something that we had said. I always put the earnings setup for the trading room, before in the implied move, which I think was right around 5%, maybe it was 4.5%. But I really look for consistency. A couple names that we took last week, Roper Technologies and ServiceNow. They had really a good consistent earnings beats. Google's not one of them. You can see down 1.8%. So back and forth, right? In terms of what they deliver. So that's that. A couple other names that reported. Gilead looks like they were down decently, and STX. You could see Gilead all the way down to 68. Took a VPOC down there. Oh, by the way, there is a VPOC down here for Google. If I've got the right one up here, 5-minute. So here's a place where I might be a buyer. I need the 5-minute. Yeah, 20-day. That should be down here. Yeah, down. So right around 1087. Now we didn't get down there. Doesn't mean that we have to take that out, but I think that would be a better place personally to buy. So yeah, a lot of the FANG stocks took off today. Apple was a big mover. We did see some Apple calls. They were not even that huge calls that were bought this morning. Oh, and by the way, out of the four FANG stocks, speaking of the Facebook, Google was one that we saw a lot of pre-positioning for over the last couple weeks. Now again, they did get the pop going into it, but it doesn't seem like they were necessarily right with that. So big move by Apple, big move by the FANG ETF was up. Was up 1.5%, so really strong for the FANG ETF. You could look at that. That's FDN. Frank, David, Nancy, back above the 200-day moving average, very strong. Netflix, I put on a little trade in Netflix. I think they're called double verticals when you buy a call spread and sell a put spread. That's what I did today. There was a lot of call activity. There was one order that stood out for Netflix. Let's see. Yeah, there's a $1.4 million order. May 400s. There's a lot of action. There's actually March 400s that were going up around 9:30. I know that's way far out of the money. You can see only 87 cents to buy those. But that was the first thing that I saw this morning was a lot of March 400 strike calls, and then they later went after the May 400, and I think that's doable. I put on just a shorter term trade. Again, it's a really nice trade because, these stocks, Netflix is a $350 stock. So I do favor trading options for Netflix, and you could do things like use call spreads because, it's not a cheap option, right? I mean, it's kind of difficult. So we do, this type of construction at Tribeca Trade Group, where we kind of look to be a little bit creative with options. In this sense, when you buy a call spread and sell a put spread, you're basically, it's a bullish risk reversal, and a kind of a form of it. And you're basically replicating stock, but you're capped to the downside by the width of your put spread, because that's the danger when you're selling a put spread, that it could go through the bottom. But we did that for Adobe, and I just put on a very small position on Adobe on Friday. And Adobe was up, just continue to move. We caught that one last week when it got, finally got above the 200-day moving average. So, just a small position in this one. This is where I sold the 237 and a half put spread, collected 296 on that. And right now it's marking out. I could buy it back for 175. So really nice. And then I have a long call spread, 252 and a half, 262 and a half call spread that I put on for 345, marking at 450. So winning on both sides of that trade, and that's basically why those are such good trades when you sell a little bit of premium on something that's moving up. So that kind of just leads us over to this Ulti name. We had this name in the Tribeca Trade Group newsletter 2 weeks in a row. There was a nice analyst upgrade that kind of brought my attention to it back here, but then all of a sudden today that they announced today that they're being, that they might be taken private. So real nice move there. I think they actually reported earnings too. They were supposed to report earnings after the close tomorrow. I was actually looking for an earnings trade for this one, but let's see what they ended up doing here. I think they ended up beating for their quarter. But anyway, this was another catalyst for the software group. So I'm going to spend a couple minutes here while I wait for this to come up. But again, this if you were holding some of these names, even if you didn't get the Ulti move, let's see, do I have the numbers for them? Yeah, the fourth quarter they beat by 51 cents. Fourth quarter EPS 195 versus 144. Where is their sales? That was the number that I saw. I did not see the sales number. There's the EPS. I don't know if I'm going to find it here. Let's see, maybe right here. Just to be curious, they did 304 versus estimate 300 million there. So it looks like they beat on the top line. Real nice beat on the bottom line, 195 versus 194. So names that I'm holding, I kind of felt a little bit lucky with that Ulti this morning. I'm long team, 52-week high. One name I got out of last week was QLIS and still in beast mode, so up another 3%. I mentioned Adobe. I'm in that one. I'm in a little bit of ZS as well. Also a 52-week high. And what else? I'm in one more of these names. What's the other name that I'm in here? Oh, NTNX we got into today. This is a name that I've been watching now for a while. Remember, NTNX was a name that I was long into this move, and I took it off right at the VPOC. But again, I always want to put alerts. VPOCs for me, Virgin Point of Controls, are places for me to take off a trade or at least take a target. I decided to take the whole thing off. I caught the whole move here outside of, once it got out of value. So I took it off here, and then once it reclaims, I'm back in it, and we'll see what this thing wants to do. And I believe, do I have one? Oh, and then I got out of Autodesk today. So I had a call spread on in Autodesk. So yeah, I've been very, loaded up on these software names, and I'm trying to be prudent and take these off as they're big gainers. Even though they continue to go up, right? I mean, I got out of Coop I think the beginning of last week, and look at this thing still going. That kind of looks like a toppy candle today. It looks pretty overbought. So, I said it last week when we saw the call activity that I thought it was already extended with a call activity, but now it looks even more extended. So keep in mind, this week you've got a lot of these software names reporting. You've got data. You've got I had this in the weekend newsletter. You have Zen that's reporting. Was it Paycom, Payc, and a couple other ones. So you've got about 5 or 6 of these little software companies that are reporting. So it doesn't mean that anything is going to change, but if one of them misses, their earnings, it's probably going to affect the whole group, right? When a group is pretty extended in something bad. So again, I don't know that. I would just kind of be aware of that. Looks like Google board has authorized purchases of 12.5 billion of stock. So we'll see what that does to it. So that was another group, and then there were some other groups that really came alive today. I have for Real Vision tomorrow. I'll have a video out on Visa. Visa closed on the highs today. The Aerospace and Defense group was really strong. I don't really have anything on in this space. Boeing was up another $9, 2.5%. You kind of felt like Boeing with those results. It was inevitable that it was going to make a 52-week high, but there it is. So you can look at the Ita ETF. This is the Aerospace and Defense ETF. So there was a few names that were strong in this. Raytheon was really strong. I think Lockheed Martin was also pretty strong. I mean, look at the candle today in Raytheon after earnings. Again, another shake and bake type name after earnings. You could see red candle on earnings day, inside day, and then boom. So nice to see some other groups. I don't talk about the banks a lot because I'm just not a fan of getting. You could reach me on Google if you have any opinions on this. I just don't think there's a lot of catalyst for the banks, but they were even up a little bit today. What else did well? Small cap healthcare did well today. PSCH is that ETF. Cyber names again were strong. Let's see. I'm afraid to look. This is one name that I've been in and out of. Unfortunately, I missed the move in FTNT. I just did not get a position on in this one. Cyber was the one that I was holding. I'm sure this one is probably, it's actually flat today, but real nice performance. That was another one that I got out of last week. Option activity for today, again, it centered a lot around names that we've already talked about. The Cron, ACB, if I didn't mention that one. Roku flew today. There were some rumors that Apple might be interested, and then the story was out saying that no, they're not. They're interested in like something small with them. I forget what the actual headline was. CTSX is another tech name that had good earnings and had a weird reaction after earnings. So still below the 200-day moving average. This chart's not jumping out to me. That's why I did not take that trade. A couple other of my trades I talked about, mostly the winners. I put on a trade in this name on Friday, and it just kind of died on me. So my stop was pretty tight here. And I what I normally do, unless I really see a lot of momentum for the day, is I wait till the end of the day, even though it kind of went below 23.91 and just took it off at the end of the day. But yeah, it's kind of disappointing, right? When the market has a positive day and one of the stocks that you're in is down, 5-6%, so out, and then I could worry about other things. The trade that I was moaning and groaning about on Friday, DHI, down another almost 70 basis points. So this one, continues to kind of bleed for the first 2 days. I will probably add to this trade, but I'm not going to force it. I'm not going to add just because the name is down. So if I see maybe more call buying, for me, I got to see this thing maybe get back above value, because I don't like there's a VPOC down there on the 5-minute that is lurking down there, which I don't like. I mean, if it happens to take that out, that's probably where I would be a buyer. But I'm okay, even adding if I'm a little bit late. So if it gets back above 38.17, I'm fine adding there. It should still be under my ultimate cost basis. All right, so that's enough for today. Video is about 19 minutes. I'd like to keep it definitely under 20. So plenty of other names that are going to be reporting this week. Again, pretty impressive price action. Bonds were down 0.5% today. A couple other names. Sorry, I don't want to go on any longer, but the metal space is starting to look interesting as well. Nice move in copper today. All right, guys, that's it. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.